Hey friends, Kenny Jang here with Church Tech Today, checking in with you with another installment of our video series. So we're just trying something new here. Last time we had Andy Mage on, and I've got another fabulous guest, someone who exceeds all expectations whenever you meet him. It's my friend Luke McElroy. Welcome, Luke. How are you doing?
Kenny, the number one proponent for overhyped intros. I love it.
Well, it definitely is a joy to have you here, and it's a true fact. I mean, I think I learn something new every time I'm with you, and you've got the energy and the passion for the church. One of the things that you do tons of things, but one of the things that we are talking about here today is an event that's coming up, actually in the near future, not the distant future. It's SALT Conference. Tell us a little bit about what it is, and who is it for? Let's just the basic, like the baseball card stats type of stuff.
Yeah, so SALT Conference, it's located in Nashville, Tennessee. And someone quipped once, Kenny, that SALT is the creative conference for the church. And it's kind of just stuck with us ever since. We did not make that up. Someone else did. So I want to give credit where credit is due. But really what our heartbeat is to find anybody in the church that's serving in technical production, creative production, filmmaking, communication, storytelling, everything from web all the way through service programming, including the worship team, and say, if you serve behind the scenes or you serve in some sort of creative arts manner, let's gather. Let's figure out how we can use the gifts that God's given us to impact our local communities, to help the local church, and to hopefully make a difference with the calling that God has on our lives. So that's kind of the whole heartbeat.
And one of the threads that I've seen attending this conference before is that there is this intentionality about creativity, not just in the excellence of the programming, but of the message and inspiration that I don't see in other conferences or platforms, that really trying to show leaders that you are here to steward God's beauty in creativity and what you do and all the things that you are producing, managing for the local church. Can you tell us a little bit of that? Because I think that is a distinctive of the church. I think you can say it's a creative conference, or right, that you talk about the creative arts, etc. But there is this little, I don't know, it's beyond just aesthetics that you feel when you actually go through the experience of SALT Conference.
Yeah, I mean, we have a bunch of things that we believe holistically are true about creativity in the church. And I think, Kenny, our name is probably the best thing or sort of hook to hang your hat on that I can point to about the need for intentionality and creativity in the church. SALT is not an acronym. It doesn't stand for Sound and Light Team, even though
Oh, that's a good one.
Have said that to me over the years. It's a picture, and it's a picture of the role that we think creativity and technology should have in the church. And I say that, if I can dive into that a little bit. Salt is a flavoring agent. It's a preservative. There's a bunch of characteristics to salt, and if you apply all of those characteristics to the local church, then it's the exact role that creativity and technology can play. It's not a main course, right? Your church does not thrive on creativity or technology. That would be entertainment. Taylor Swift does that phenomenally. Johnny Swim can knock you out of the ballpark every single day with those sorts of skills. And the church was never meant to be an entertainment mecca. It was meant to be the good news of the gospel to the world and to reach people in our community. So we think salt is that seasoning that gets added to the gospel. It's not even a side dish. It is a seasoning. It's a thing that you sprinkle across your message. It's a thing you sprinkle across your experiences and your encounters. Creativity and technology is not meant to replace connections with humans or to replace some sort of spiritual opportunity for worship or prayer or teaching or any of that. It's a seasoning. And when you think about it, my favorite characteristic of salt is that when it's added to things, it causes you to thirst. And I think that when we apply creativity, when we apply technology, when we apply communications or all these story elements that we talk about at SALT into our environments with the right intentionality, it hopefully ultimately is seasoning the gospel of our church, the message that we're trying to put out towards our community of hope and restoration and life and eternal, glory with God. And we're seasoning it in a way that causes you to thirst.
Love it. Love it. So, practically speaking, you've got different modalities, and so it's not just a sit and soak conference that you go to, right?
Totally.
That was a little bit disorienting to me the first time I ever went, because most conferences you go, there's a big ballroom someplace, and you just sit there and you figure out. You go to your seat, and then there's breaks, and you go back to the same seat every single time, right? Like
Yeah.
all day, day one,
Yeah,
day two, day.
we kind of want to create a choose your own adventure sort of conference experience from the standpoint of, I mean, we believe that inspiration breeds inspiration, and that environment is such a key proponent to allowing you to spark those creative ideas and juices or whatever. So we want to try and intentionally place you in a variety of different environments. So we've got main sessions, we've got workshops. This year we'll have over 50 practical topics. You're going to be there with the Church Tech
Yes.
team, and so we have a ton of incredible speakers on a wealth of topics around this. But we also do two different things that are a little bit unique to our community. Number one, we're very intentional about connections. So we've called this community groups in the past. And essentially what we do is try and get you around a table with people that you may not know around the country that do what you do, so that you have that sort of creative church mastermind group that you can call upon year after year. In fact, there's a killer story right before COVID, SALT 19. There was a girl, Katie, who was in a community group at SALT, and come fast forward to March when everything shut down in 2020. Her pastor was like, "We need to stream," and she's like, "Oh my gosh, I don't know what to do." Her first text was to her SALT community group, and over the next 3-4 weeks, two of her community group members actually journeyed to her church to help her get her streaming up and running. I mean, you cannot find this sort of support anywhere else in the church, which is what's so beautiful. So community groups are unique. And then the second thing that I think we do well is with our partners and with our own team, we try and craft environments of sort of surprise and delight all
Mm.
throughout the hallway. We've had interactive touch LED walls in the past. We've had projection mapped environments. We've had kinetic lights that come up and down the ceiling. And every year it's a little bit different, but we're trying to just evoke wonder, because at the end of the day, we want to create beautiful environments that allow you to interact with the beautiful one. And that's our heartbeat at the end of the day. And so if we can evoke that for you in our conference, that's our heartbeat. Why shouldn't we practice what we preach and help
Yeah.
you see maybe in a model how to do that in your church?
Now you have over, I think it's over 50 sessions scheduled at this point that you've announced, right?
Yeah.
Like it's so, just to be clear, I think it's definitely in my wheelhouse, the communications corner of the house, production,
Yeah, all
film,
three aspects of
video.
production. So audio,
Yeah.
video, lighting in the main room. You've got film and design. There's another track.
Yeah.
You've got worship. We actually last year introduced a brand new track specifically for online church, because we feel like online church sort of broadens a couple of
Yes.
different tracks. And so we're like, let's be really intentional about how do we make that better? How do you tell your story better? Worship, creative process, and then leadership. So there's 9 total tracks, which give you just a huge breadth of options. It's almost like the Cheesecake Factory menu, probably. It's like too many options. But that's that whole choose your own adventure. I mean, the best idea, Kenny, is for you to come with a team
Yeah.
and divide and conquer, and then meet up and go, okay, what did I learn here? What did I learn here? Because we learn when we get a chance to teach. And if you can come with a team or at least one other person, if you don't come by yourself, or if you come by yourself, just go meet someone like Kenny and go, hey, can we just meet up in a couple of hours and let's just trade notes? Because that is where growth happens.
Absolutely. So as a former church online pastor, I'm like thankful that you are focusing explicitly on church online at a conference. We don't see that at conferences, at least yet. I think we will eventually, but you're a trailblazer in this area. And I'm excited to lead one of the sessions talking about digital engagement on that side. Tell us a little bit about where it is and what dates it specifically, from when to
Yeah,
when.
it's almost always in October of our calendar year. And so this year in 2021, it'll be October 20th through the 22nd. Like I said, in Nashville, Tennessee, it's actually a church called Long Hollow, which many of this community may know has been a pioneer and a trailblazer here in the Nashville community of incredible ministry. And so it's hosted there again. And it's a beautiful campus, just a little bit north of Nashville. But you can get all the information at saltnashville.com if you guys are interested. And we just announced a week or so ago that for those of you who either are COVID conscious and don't want to be around people, or you just simply can't afford the travel, we are, for the first time ever, going to allow you to participate in a stream pass. So you can get those details online as well. And we did something last year that was a huge sort of we got a lot of thanks for it. I should say huge success, but we basically allowed you to buy one ticket for your whole team. So if you do a stream pass, you can actually do a team stream. So you
Oh,
can, for
wow.
one price, get 20 streams, and people can kind of participate at their own pace and all that sort of stuff. So anyway, all that information, saltnashville.com.
Gotcha. And then, so it starts on that Wednesday, the 20th of October this year.
That's correct.
And so typically it starts in the evening as your main session, but before that you have this pre-conference thing. Tell us a little bit
Yeah,
about pre-conference.
yeah, pre-conference is really like the best in-depth learning experience you could ever imagine in creative church topics. So it lasts for like 4 hours right before conference registration starts, and then we kick off that night with main session. And we have, I think, 6 different topics this year. And the idea is that they're not just sit and learn, like you mentioned earlier, that a lot of conferences do. Our whole intent is that you would walk out with a game plan, a whole new perspective, maybe have had your hands on technology or been able to watch a process sort of all the way through. I mean, for example, audio, we're going to literally walk through the entire process of setting up audio, from inputs on stage to how do you set up your console to how do you deal with monitors and all that sort of stuff. And so Samantha Potter, who's going to lead us through that, is going to literally have a whole setup in the environment for you to walk through. So the idea is that it's far more hands-on, far more intensive training, because the honest truth is you can only learn so much in a 45-minute workshop. Let's give you a space to really go deep and learn impressively in that way.
Nice. Yeah, that pre-conference thing, and I think you can get pre-conference separately, or is it only with the whole ticket package?
It's only with the whole ticket package, but if you did already purchase a ticket and you did not have pre-conference, you can add that on. So you can email our team and we'll be happy to help you guys.
Highly recommended. I think this is one of the things where you will hear, mostly on day 2, because the day 1's the evening, but when you're back in the sessions day 2, you hear people talking about, oh my gosh, that was amazing. I can go home, and the value was amazing. The pre-conference stuff, because you dive deep in the pre-conference sessions on these topics.
It's a great primer to like the rest of the week, because you start just jumping in the deep end. I mean, I hate it when you go to like, when you were in college and like the first class was kind of a throwout because they go through syllabus and all this sort of stuff. We were like, toss that out. Let's do the like midterm exam right out of the gate, right? Like, let's just jump you into the deep end and then let you sort of figure your way out. So it just helps you guys get the most value out of training, because the honest truth is we want to help bless ministries across this nation as best as we possibly can.
That's awesome. And then, I mean, your keynotes are great. Plenary sessions, the main sessions. Do you have a list of speakers available, or who are some of the speakers that we should be looking forward to meeting and hearing from?
Yeah, so we've already announced several of them, and we're still working on some more surprise guests that, if they go the way that I think they're going, everybody on this watching this video is going to be kind of blown away by some of the people that are going to be contributing to the conversation. But you can go to saltnashville.com and get the whole list. But Mike Donahue, 10th
Avenue North.
Yeah, he's going to be coming and speaking about what this idea of re-entering means, right? We kind of say this phrase, we're re-entering the wild as church creatives and church technicians today. I mean, it's the same trees, but it's a new path, because now that COVID has existed, we may be returning, or we may be trying to get people to come back in some way, but it's a different path forward. So anyway, he's going to talk about that from a creative standpoint. What does it look like to re-enter a craft? And if you know anything about his journey, Glenn Packiam is coming back. He's been a favorite of SALT Conference for years. He was a worship leader with New Life, and then is now one of their pastors on their team. We've got a couple of other really creative voices. Jeremy Cowart, we just announced, is coming. And Megan Alexander, who may not be a name anybody recognizes, but she is a faith pioneer, and she is one of the hosts on Inside Edition. So we've got people from both church pastors, church creatives, sort of, whatever, but also industry leaders who are basically going to help us understand not just what do we do as church practitioners, but how do we reach people, and maybe how do we affect culture at large, not just in our sort of 4 walls of our church, but how do we start doing that outside in our community?
That's cool. And you got,
get the whole list online.
Yeah, you got representation from the large churches like Saddleback and
Transformation Church, Passion City Church, all those.
Elevation, right? Like
it's not just the big names or the names we may recognize. What is really neat about the SALT community, and you've been there, you can attest to this, is that it's also a bunch of names that you may not recognize, but they're doing some incredibly pioneering or innovative things that we can all glean from. And that's what our team spends all of our time during the quote off season when we don't actually have a 3-day gathering. We're just trying to hear and we're trying to listen. We're trying to meet people. I mean, I always am texting Kenny like, "Hey, what are some new voices I need to know about?" You know, because we just believe that that's an important thing.
That's awesome. Awesome. So tickets are still available. They can go to saltnashville.com. Is that the best place for them to go?
That's it. Yep, saltnashville.com.
I'm going to be there. Also, my partner Katie Allred from Church Communications, I think, is speaking on the roster as well. Tons of, I mean, it's another family and community, I think, that you're going to get plugged into if you come. If you see me there, say hello, call me out. Same thing with Luke. I think that's one of the things that I think the speakers at this conference more than others. There are some other big names that go to conferences that they just hang out in the green room and aren't accessible.
Yeah, we make our green room really small so that nobody can actually hang out there. They have to hang
that is true. That is true. But here I remember that big lobby area, especially where the booths were in the foyer. Like there are speakers like just talking in huddles with people all the time. It wasn't just during one session. It was throughout the day. People were hanging out. And then the other thing is I think a lot of leaders go to these conferences for very practical, tactical type of discovery of equipment, gear, solutions, etc. You've got some decent, I guess, partners or sponsors.
I mean, yeah. I mean, we've got a whole slew of people that I think this community specifically would love to get their hands on new technology, new tools, new approaches. I'll also say this, Kenny, we're bringing back this year for the first time in a while, thanks to some of our partners, a tech behind the scenes tour. So I know that's so helpful to go behind the scenes and see from a technology standpoint, how does a church like Long Hollow leverage technology? And the reason we've partnered with some of our partners to do it this year is that we're bringing L Acoustics and the Elisa immersive sound system back. And so we wanted them to be able to pull the curtain back a little bit and say, hey, not only is this what the church has, which is going to be insightful, but here's some of the new technology that SALT is leveraging and how they're leveraging it so that you can kind of learn a little bit. I mean, I feel like it's so vital to not just go to a creative conference, but go, how does a creative conference plan, or how does a creative conference prepare? And I think that behind the scenes tour, especially for this community, is going to be extremely insightful.
Love it. Love it. Excited about this. saltnashville.com. If there's any other questions or people want to get in touch with you or learn more, what's the best way for them to contact you? Or do you have social channels that you want to share? Or what are the different places?
We kind of go by the name Salt Community everywhere. So you can go search for that on Facebook. You can jump onto our Instagram handle. Instagram's probably the one that we are most active on. And I think the best thing to do is if you're not interested in this conference, but you want free resources or free stuff. I mean, who in this ministry environment doesn't? Just go to saltcommunity.com/free resources, or just go to Salt Community and then there's a link in the menu for free resources. And we'd love to just hook you up with ProPresenter templates, with cheat sheets or hotkeys or video templates. I mean, all these sorts of things that you guys can use in your weekly ministries. Because again, we want to pour into what you're doing. And that's the whole heartbeat. So join our mailing list, get a free resource. Let us hook you up so that we can kind of really, truly be a blessing for you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember looking last time, there was like, you've got like announcement slides and you've got like After Effects templates and you've literally got like cheat sheets for different software packages. So anyway, I think that's great. And then, sorry, I didn't even mention, what is Salt U? Tell people a little bit what Salt U is, because I think this is unique also.
So Salt University started from day one. It was this idea of how do we take all the training that we do at SALT. So think about that. Every workshop, for the most part, every pre-conference, and for the most part, every keynote. There's a few that from a legal standpoint, we couldn't actually repurpose. But for the most part, every single teaching that's ever happened at a SALT conference, all the way back to 2013, we've put in one platform. And we've designed this back-end sort of engine, if you will, to invite team members in. So you can invite volunteers, and we're trying to make training easy, especially in COVID, where training gets even more complex because we're trying to limit the amount of on-site, people during the week. You can actually upload your own videos. You can go find videos on YouTube or Vimeo, or you can use anything in our library, and it actually will create a training regiment that you can see a volunteer's progress. You can invite them in. You can create a couple of different courses. So anyway, but if you yourself just want to grow, saltuniversity.com is literally every training that we ever have. And I'll tease your group. There's a talk that we were not allowed to release for a long time. and it was a sort of sketch, if you will, that was the number one requested sketch called um, "Every Sermon Ever."
Oh yes.
And we finally were able to release it. So you can go look at that at saltuniversity.com.
This was it last year's conference that was at? 2 years ago.
I think it was at 2019,
Yes.
yeah, or 2018, one of those two.
I remember I was literally sitting direct in the middle, and that I had the best view of that skit. It was glorious. Let me just say that it was glorious. You have to look this up. Best skit ever.
It's essentially what every pastor has ever done. They basically, this guy who wrote this pulls that out and makes fun of it, and all of us who serve behind the scenes, we will die laughing because we're going to find our pastor amongst those that midst.
Yes, all in good spirits. It was just one of those things. It makes you feel like, hey, you get me.
Yeah.
As a church tech media person, you get me. You understand. This is my tribe of the struggles that we go through on Sunday. So anyway, that was a fantastic skit. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with us for a little bit. I'd love to have you or the team back throughout this next couple months because I think there's so much that you guys have to offer. But October 20th, 21, 22 in Nashville. We'll see you there with the Church Tech team, and we'll see you, Luke, as we get closer to that event. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks, Kenny.